Now I'd like to introduce our next panel. This is Jonathan O'Brien, TD, health drug spokesperson for Sinn Fein party based in Cork, North Central, and Aodhan, the Minister of State for Drugs in Ireland with the Labour Party, and Cormac, the crime correspondent for the Irish Examiner. I first met Aodhan at Students for Sensible Drug Policy Support Don't Punish event on O'Connell Street, and I suppose what stood out about Aodhan was that he was very approachable. He came down, he came to our event, and he was very engaging with the community. We had a lot of community of activists, a range of different people. And was just never afraid, I suppose, to kind of ask us questions and what he needed to do better, how he needed to learn, and he kept, I suppose, a real open-mindedness to his approach to drugs and to drug policy within his community as well. So really appreciate I guess the kind of the work and the efforts that Aodhan has put into this conversation. I think a lot of it wouldn't have maybe gone as mainstream if it wasn't for Aodhan coming out in April or May of 2015 and really pushing the issue further and further. And Jonathan O'Brien as well, in Jonathan's constituency, that's actually where our Help Not Harm office is based. We're actually neighbours, and I spoke to Jonathan O'Brien. We met there last week for a quick conversation in the morning, and again, just very approachable, down to earth, and a willingness to learn and a willingness to get engaged with this topic. Cormac O'Keefe here, we met at the Oireachtas Justice Committee of the House of Oireachtas a few months ago. And Cormac was again just asking the right questions to the Oireachtas committee, and clearly very knowledgeable. I mean, I think he's running stories every week or every 2 weeks in the Irish Examiner on the topic of drug policy. So really, there is nobody better, I thought, to chair this kind of conversation. And so I'd welcome and just maybe applause this panel here for coming down and just taking the effort from your election campaign to come and speak with us. I think it's really applaudable, and thank you so much for coming here. Thanks very much.
Yes, it is working. Okay. Thanks, Graham. Graham invited me last week, and actually, like a good journalist, I agreed to do it without actually reading the email. Really, I didn't actually know what I was being asked to do, so then I kind of got stuck. But there's no need to introduce Aodhan. I think it's fair to say that those of us who have been covering this issue for a long time, the landscape has changed quite dramatically in the last year. And that is in no small part to, I suppose, how Aodhan has approached this subject. And Jonathan has been working on this area for a long time in the Cork Local Drugs Task Force, and has obviously some personal insights into this area, which we will probably touch on as we go along. It would seem appropriate that, given the tragedy down in Cork, that we might start with that, with the death of Alex Ryan. Can I ask you, Jonathan, what kind of, I suppose, insights do you have into that, and what lessons do you think we should learn from it?
I think when the incident happened and following the passing of Alex, there was a genuine sense of shock in the area. Most of our drug focus in Cork would have been on heroin abuse. And to a lesser extent, street tabs, scripts. And this type of drug really wouldn't have been well known, but having looked at it in recent days, it's very, very clear that it's a growing issue. We still don't know the extent of the use of this particular drug, psychoactive drugs, in Cork. And I would imagine that is the same throughout the state. I think the issue with it is because they're changing so often. What you might be taking this week could be something totally different next week. They're constantly coming up with new derivatives of the drug, and people genuinely don't know what is contained within it. And that is the scary part about it. The lessons we need to learn. Obviously, there is a huge education side of it for policymakers. And I think it's a bit of a wake-up call, certainly for me as a policy maker, that sometimes we get caught up in focusing on the headline drugs such as the heroin, such as the cannabis, such as the street tabs, and we kind of take our eye off the ball when it comes to these very dangerous psychoactive drugs. So there's definitely a bit of education for us as policy makers in how we approach that. I know Aodhan has done huge work in the area, and I commend him on that, because without the likes of Aodhan, I don't think we would even be further down the line to where we are right now in terms of being able to openly talk about the possibility of decriminalisation. The political establishment usually shies away from these issues. They're not popular issues in constituencies. Nobody wants to stand up and say we want to have a medically supervised injecting centre in our community. But I always say to people, look, this is on your doorstep already. So you either address it from a public health point of view, or you keep criminalising people. You keep criminalising people, then you're going to keep having incidents like we had in Cork recently.
Minister, do you have any thoughts on what I suppose the country could learn from this tragedy?
Well, yeah. Again, very similar to what Jonathan has said. I suppose the body drug use issue is becoming one of the biggest problems we have. The use of cannabis, alcohol, and prescription drugs and other types of psychoactive substances as well. Just when you get in behind the layer of the reportage of this particular incident in Cork, and you sometimes look at some of the comments online and what people are saying, it doesn't take long for the blame culture to come back, and for the victimisation of the victim to come back, and for people to make very, stupid comments about, putting blame on, again, the person who was involved in the drug taking themselves. And this is, I think, what the entire context of this debate is all about. It's about shame, and it's about stigma, and that isn't working for anybody. And what young people say to me, and I'm quite sure to Jonathan as well, is that, look, we would listen to your messages if they weren't shrouding such lies, because we know what our parents were doing during the Celtic Tiger era. We know that this country is a completely dysfunctional relationship with alcohol, and yet you're moralising about us and our drug taking. I was involved in the student unions. A number of student unions have a What's in the Pill campaign, and again there'll always be criticism saying, well, something you're facilitating, or you're in some way placidly giving a kind of an allowance to people to dabble or to experiment. But I think unless we have information, and unless we empower people to make their own decisions with their own bodies, well then we're not going to get very far. I think many people say we've moved away from the just say no mantra, and I think that's welcome. But I think the just say no mantra still has a lot of resonance in Irish society, and I think we need to really to stamp that out.
I think both yourself and Minister Varadkar were asked about the drug testing issue of tablets, and there's a campaign which you yourself were at, Minister, a while ago with some of the students' unions. Is that something that could help deal with this particular issue of these particular substances, some of which are hard to detect? There's no substance to detect because we don't actually know the chemical substance, and the tests can't test for them. Is there, I suppose, a harm reduction approach? It was mentioned during the morning that that's what we have in this country, or at least that's what we should be aiming for. Is there a harm reduction approach that could respond to this particular threat? We know from the European Union that there's about 450 of these substances at the moment, and they're increasing every year. And in the region of 700 websites that are supplying these things. So how can we devise a response, Minister, to what is an area that just seems to be going to just get worse?
Yeah, I remember actually one of the first interviews I did in relation to psychoactive substances. I made a comment that 20 years ago we were dealing with 20 substances, and now we're dealing with 420. And I got a lot of laughter online because apparently 420 is a byword for cannabis. And what's the minister making a kind of a smart aleck remark. Apparently 4:20 in the afternoon is the time when kids in America used to come together and smoke pot. So you learn as you go in this line of work. On the pill testing idea, I don't know. I mean, I want to be an open-minded person. I want to be somebody who's happy to discuss anything in terms of harm reduction measures. Certainly, what we have to exhaust is the education line. What we have to exhaust is the public awareness campaign type initiatives. We had 679 drug and alcohol related deaths in Ireland in 2013. 679 people died because of drug and alcohol related issues in 2013. So that's a massive crisis. Now, not all of those were related to psychoactive substances, but a fifth of those were related to heroin. But certainly anything that can save a life should certainly be investigated. Is the pill testing idea one that we should pursue? Look, I'm open-minded. I do have certain concerns about it. I do have concerns that people will go into a nightclub and test a pill, and it would say this, this is safe to take, and then there's a very violent reaction from that person and it doesn't end well, and then recrimination start. But look, I think essentially what we want to do is to empower anybody of any age group to know what they're taking, to know what they're doing, and to be empowered with the information as to how toxic or potentially dangerous these substances are.
Jonathan, you on this issue, you